One of my most popular videos has been my video I made on San Andreas and how I believed it was outdated. And I still hold, mostly, true to that conviction. The game is outdated and has crucial flaws in all of its elements that make the game unenjoyable, and what Injustice made me realize was that it's entirely a nostalgia thing. Now, let me just say, San Andreas and Injustice are not on the same level at all. San Andreas was a revolution of its time and created the stronger pathways we've seen in modern GTA games and just open world games in general. Injustice, on the other hand, is a 2013 DC fighting game made by the guys who make Mortal Kombat and was released to fairly good but still pretty unbothered reception. Injustice doesn't do anything new or exciting or even that interesting, but I absolutely love this game. And so if San Andreas was my angry email to that game, then this video is my love letter to this game, because it makes me very happy and I'm going to talk about it and reminisce a bit. So sit back, get a bowl of watery cereal and a glass of bull sperm, because it's going to be a less using my brain type video. So, Injustice Gods Among Us was created by NetherRealm Studios in 2013. NetherRealm were responsible for the Mortal Kombat reboot in 2011, and are also responsible for the modern Mortal Kombat games. And essentially, Injustice just carries the idea of Mortal Kombat into a DC setting and doesn't have fatalities. It's a very simple concept, but an awesome one. I love DC and Batman, and my next long essay review is going to be covering Arkham Knight, a vastly superior game to this as much as I love it. Unlike a lot of content creators who make video essays and are older than myself, I didn't grow up with the PS2 or the original Xbox. No, I grew up with the 360. My earliest game was Lego Batman 1, and most of my childhood was Batman and DC stuff. I played the Lego games to death. I collected Batman Lego, I drew pictures of him, I even wrote stories about him in my classwork. And after a while, as I got older, I still love Batman and DC, but I wanted something more grown up. And when I say grown up, I mean something that isn't made out of Lego. If they made Batman the video game and it was just a Lego game but with Arkham Knight character models, I would have fell in love with it. Look, anyways, I saw Injustice first by a YouTuber named K-Wing Let's Plays, a Let's Play channel where this guy and his wife play video games. I thought the game looked cool, and of course I wasn't allowed to play it at the time, but for some reason I was allowed to read the comics. I got Injustice Year 2 Volume 2 at a comic store and read it about 500 times. I love this comic book. It's just indescribably fun and melodramatic. The comics are also really gory and violent and featured the murder of many innocent good characters, but for some reason I just found the story so compelling and dramatic that I loved it. This game is made for kids. Nuanced characters and amazing creative writing are not the focus in this game. It's just about being over-dramatic, dark, and engaging. And you know, it does that. It doesn't even serve a greater purpose or even attempt to be any new kind of different thing like Arkham Knight does. This game is set in stone as a vanilla fighting game, and it warmly embraces its fate as a mediocre video game. The story told in the game is certainly interesting, to say the least. The game's plot revolves around an alternate universe in which the Joker manipulates Superman into killing his wife and unborn child Lois, which then causes Metropolis to blow up with a nuclear bomb. Superman, consumed by guilt and grief, murders the Joker. Superman slowly but surely starts to lose his sense of justice and ends up killing many people and rules the world under an iron fist of a dictatorship. He is sided with most of the Justice League, with Batman being one of the only exceptions. Batman and Superman eventually start a war on each other, and over 5 years of comics, battle it out until it's almost too late. Batman and his friend, who is a double agent of Superman, Lex Luthor, decide to bring in the Justice League from a non-tyrannical Superman universe, and basically the video game is the events of Superman and the regime being defeated. The video game story on its own is pretty bland, honestly, but the comics really do add to it and make for a much better told and interesting narrative. I like Injustice's story because it's simple and quiet. I've always been a fan of quieter games that feel less cluttered but more open and empty, and having simply a fun story to follow rather than some literary masterpiece. This is why I like PS2 and PS3 generation games more. They are more quiet. Games weren't obsessed with being big and detailed, they just wanted to be fun. And this game is really fun, and the writers I think went an extra step with the writing than they probably needed to. The story is basic and has so many flaws in it, but it's so compelling in both the comics and the video game. The comics are much better told, and the writers definitely had a better understanding of DC's characters, but Injustice also makes a good, but less characterized and epic story. Yes, I just used epic in its actual definition. I think the story is good because it feels very DC and comic booky, and is basically a dark and edgy version of a kid's Batman story. Superman kills someone. Superman go bad, we beat Superman. The only element where they failed was Batman and Catwoman. For some unholy god reason, NetherRealm hates Catwoman and her relationship with Batman, and it pisses me off because it would very much suit a game like this, being so ridiculous and childish in nature. This game is for children. I will never change my opinion about that. It's not made for adults looking for a deep and meaningful game. It's made to be dark and edgy and fun, which is basically what Batman and DC Comics is, right? I don't know. The gameplay is pretty alright as well. It's fun, and whilst not as good as Mortal Kombat 9, it's still fun. The intros and outros do get repetitive, but they have a lot of character to them, so they are appreciated, as well as the ridiculous super moves that replace X-rays that are just hilarious and stupid, but still very entertaining. And as funny and interesting the concept is of Batman and Superman having a brawl is, I'm gonna be honest, I'm not the biggest fighting games fan. I enjoy the worlds and characters, but the gameplay has always been something I'm not too bothered about. Perhaps I'll get better at it in the future and enjoy it more, but at least for this game, the gameplay works and suits the game, but is somewhat tedious throughout the story, as literally every character confrontation results in a fight, but the 2 health bars are nice. Could have done with them in that Jade and Kudasai. Also, a really weird thing I want to talk about is the actual game stuff, and by that I mean stuff like the lighting in this game. It makes me super nostalgic, the warmish colours of Metropolis to the cold blues and greys in the Fortress of Solitude, and the bad yet somewhat realistic textures and models. It's something I guess I'm very nostalgic and loving of as well. The game also has a fairly strong mods community that creates a lot of custom skins and things, and whilst most of them are just reskins, they are still quite cool and worth a mess around with. It does also have the free camera mod, which is something I'll be exploring in my next video, which hopefully will be really fun. The point of all of this is that I love Injustice. Look, critically speaking, this game sucks. It looks old, the story is badly told, the gameplay isn't anything new or exciting, but I love this game. I really mean that. I adore Injustice. It brings me back to a time where things were simpler, and I remember going around my friend's house and playing as Deathstroke and annoying him so much by spamming the machine gun move, and us picking our main characters, and then going to school and play fighting in our own version of Injustice and trying to make our own version of Mortal Kombat, even though we didn't know jack about what Mortal Kombat really is. And don't get me started on the mobile game, which oh my god, it's such an obvious con and cash grabbing machine, but I love it. I remember buying tokens to buy new characters and now regretting that because I could spend it on a new monitor or a better mic. The point is, I love Injustice and I wanted to share my nostalgic love for the game because I'm curious to see if anyone feels the same, not just with this game but with any game. Even if it's San Andreas, I'd love to hear it and discuss it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this video, and I ask you to consider leaving a like and subscribing because it would mean a lot to me. And if you don't like my content, please tell me why you don't, and I'll be happy to hear any kind of feedback or constructive criticism. Also, the sequel